Nintendo investors panic about Switch 2 prices and silence around big game announcements. Now, this already, based on things that have happened since the announcements of the price hike, feels very premature. If Nintendo hoped last week's announcement of a price increase for the Switch 2 would be enough to unspook its shareholders, that's now been entirely dashed. Reuters reports that the company's share price has fallen 7% since markets opened in Japan Monday the 11th, while it's come to light via VGC that the $50 increase still isn't going to be enough to match increased expenses when producing the Switch 2. Without a big new game anywhere on the 2026 horizon, investors are really getting the giblies. Okay, that's a way of putting it. Last week's price hike announcement was intended to calm market nerves after Nintendo had seen 5 months in a row of falling share prices and long-term concern from its investors, alongside lowering its sales expectations for the Switch 2 over the next year. This was despite simultaneously announcing that the new console had sold 20 million units and 50 million games in its first 9 months. But of course, when it comes to the deranged world of market capitalism, it's only ever about what's going to happen next, and never what actually just happened. As a consequence, today's trading saw a colossal 7% wiped off Nintendo's value, while Sony saw its own price leap up 10%. Those are ungodly numbers by stock market standards. Like, those are huge jumps. It's now been made more clear than that even though year one price increases on the Switch 2 aren't actually enough to meet the increased costs of production for Nintendo, and that's despite the rises within Japan being far more steep than those due to hit the rest of the world this September. Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa reportedly said that the higher price does not fully account for all cost increases, referring to the higher price of computer components being caused by the ridiculous AI race and the current spike in oil prices. Nintendo historically does not sell its consoles at a loss, whereas this has been standard practice for Sony and Microsoft for years, which instead view the machines as loss leaders for the profits made from game sales. So as Reuters says, Sony can impress investors by signaling an intention to sell fewer PS5s at a better margin, while having a massively diverse company of many parts to back it up. But Nintendo, which aside from its third share of Pokemon is primarily a video games business, has fewer flashy objects with which to distract from a squeeze on margins. This is being made all the more difficult by the peculiar absence of big-name games on its 2026 release list. Pokemon Pokopia has been a massive success, but again, that's already happened. Investors only care about what's coming up. And with the next mainline Pokemon game now not appearing until 2027, that's an awkwardly blank space. This is written in such a way that I suspect that the writer is a little bit new here. This is what it is always like before Summer Game Fest or what used to be E3. You wait for that big June showcase to fill up the calendar for the rest of the year. I don't know anything about this writer. I mean, he got on at Kotaku, for what that's worth, but the investors especially should know all of this by now. A refresh of Star Fox, yet another Splatoon game, and Yoshi and the Mysterious Book aren't the all-conquering titles backers will be hoping for, and without even a hint at a new 3D Mario or any word on what's next for The Legend of Zelda, those gambling on game sales are perhaps reasonably spooked. Again, it's still May. In May, you don't really know what's going to be happening over the holidays. Nintendo has never been a company that's moved by external forces, endlessly dancing to the beat of its own unsyncopated drum. But even it might now have to suck it up and push out news on whatever is happening with its big licenses, and ideally something of major note that will appear before the 2026 holiday season. Clearly FromSoft's The Duskbloods is the big third-party hope, but Nintendo really needs to make clear what's coming from inside its own house. Again, this is all going to come together next month. Yeah, I would say more than a little. Like, you and I, it's May. We know how this works. We also know that Furukawa has personally apologized for what price cut has been made, and has stated plainly that a result of that is going to be Nintendo really going out of their way to stuff the shelves in the pretty near future, which kind of answers a question like, it's always seemed kind of weird to us that they'll sit on finished products for a long time. Situations like this kind of make it look fairly sensible. I don't know, I'm fully prepared for Nintendo to just come out here next month and drop straight heat with the June Direct. I won't even be surprised if it goes above the usual 40-minute mark. I just think they're going to be slinging game reveals all over the place and probably dropping some stuff that they've been sitting on for a while, because you can't respond to something like this by greenlighting a bunch of projects. It just doesn't work that way. This has to be stuff that's going to be ready in the next 6 to 12 months. And the only way to make that happen is to have a lot of stuff that's been in the works. Maybe they were looking for a place on the calendar to put it beforehand, but now it's just, we have to come out with all guns blazing to make up for what is a reasonably pissed off player base, due not entirely to what Nintendo has done, but just due to the current state of economics at large and the game industry in particular. I think Ocarina of Time is all but confirmed. Yeah, I agree with that. It's got enough reliable sources behind it. If they really wanted to go crazy, they have a couple of other things that they could release to celebrate the 40th anniversary this year, which is something that they have barely touched on at all, if they have touched on it at all. But that would be a really good cushion at a time like this. Just throw all of the Zelda out there. I would want to be excited for that, but Ocarina of Time has historically been one of my least liked Zelda games. Maybe a remake is exactly what it needs to win me over, I don't know.